Episode 18 of the What Do We Do podcast. It's Bogey and Dewey here at Great Lakes Wealth. And Dewey, September has been a very weird month. Before we dive into the topic of the day, because it is exciting, I know you got a lot to say on it, but man, has the market been volatile here so far in September.
It has, absolutely. We talked about this a few weeks ago that this is to be expected. So, hope you have your seatbelt on, and the wild ride really probably goes up until the election. So we've got one more month to go. But yes, this is the way it is.
Now, if we didn't have COVID going on and we didn't have the election coming up in November, do you think that this month of September would be just as volatile as it has been, or do you think it'd be a little bit different?
No, I think as we talked about before, that historically September is the worst month out of the 12. So to be expected, on top of the fact that April, May, June, July, and August were all positive months for the market back to back to back to back. And so no, I mean, this is something that you should expect as an investor, and you should expect it at least through the election, if not, probably through the end of the year.
All right, so we'll dive right into the topic of the day, and that is going to be cash alternatives. And we have a lot of different ways that we're going to go about, kind of getting into this. And by the way, we appreciate everyone subscribing, downloading, sharing, interacting with the What Do We Do podcast, and of course, with Great Lakes Wealth. And as always, if you want more information, you can certainly go to greatlakeswealth.us. Dewey and his team have an unbelievable compilation of information if you're looking to find out a little bit more and honestly learn, kind of like I've been doing on this podcast. So first things first, want to make sure we say that.
Absolutely. And above everything else we talk about, always refer to our website, greatlakeswealth.us. There are calculators, there are presentations, we have videos, we have market news, we have current environment information. So please refer there, and we're happy to share all that we have with this wonderful community we call Southwest Detroit, Southwest Michigan, the United States, the whole world, out to Mars, Venus, and we're going to edit that out, obviously.
All right. So let's jump right in on cash alternatives here, okay? And at the risk of being vulnerable, at the risk of sounding stupid, and I've asked a million questions so far through all these episodes on the podcast. I'm trying to grow and learn because you're the expert, and this is not my world. Sports are my world. So cash alternatives. In your mind, financial expert, wealth manager, what does that mean?
So it means, just as it says, an alternative to cash, right? A traditional portfolio may be built with stocks, bond, cash, or stocks, bond, cash, real estate, maybe some gold and precious metals. You can add on to the broad categories, right? Mm-hmm. But along the way, you're going to have some cash. Either you sell something and you're sitting on cash, or again, you have the cash already and you're looking to find the opportunity to buy and invest the cash. Fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all that to say, cash is what it is, cash. And so you have choices. Take your cash, put it in the cookie jar or under the mattress. How much is that going to earn you in interest, Kyle?
It's just going to sit there. It's not going to do anything.
And it might not be very safe. If a burglar comes by your house and happens to look under your mattress, there it takes your cash. Right?
That's why you got to find a good hiding spot. I think that's very important we detail that today.
Absolutely.
If you're going to hide cash in your house, you got to make sure that nobody can find it.
Well, and I think that is a topic for another podcast, but for sure there are people who pass away and their families go in and they see cash rolled up in the bed frame or up in the attic or whatever. So absolutely. So again, keeping cash, if it's not in a bank or at a financial institution, it does not pay any interest, right? So you don't earn anything on it, and it certainly becomes somewhat unsafe, if you will, in terms of it could be stolen, but it's certainly just, let's say there's a fire. Let's just say that you forget where you put it. So again, having cash is important, especially when you have a volatile market like now. There is that quote, and I love quotes, cash is king, right? So there are periods of time that cash could be king. This might be one. So if that's the case and you have cash or are looking to, keep your cash, you might want to find the best opportunity to either keep it liquid, make you as much interest, or have it, able to be transferred from one place to the other, all that.
See, that's a perfect way to start. And you mentioned the market, and obviously over the last, 5 months, 6 months, whatever it's been, there's been people like me, I'm sure, some of your clients, I'm sure you've been doing it as well, trying to take advantage of the unfortunate circumstance that we have going on in this country and trying to make money in the market, right? Obviously, we saw some positive months go out there in a row, but what percentage or how much money should you get to in your savings account or have in your bank where you get to a point and you go, okay, I need to invest this elsewhere. I need to put this into a market. We talk about the rainy day fund and making sure you have 3 to 6 months of your bills paid. I'm assuming you don't touch that. So this is essentially cash that you have on top of the rainy day fund that you're figuring out what to do with.
Maybe not, right? So again, it depends on what the purpose is of your cash. So every asset allocation, that's the word, the phrase that we'll talk about, asset allocation, is the allocating of your assets. So again, your cash, your stocks, your bonds, your collectibles, your real estate, etc., right? So
the alternatives to cash.
Alternatives to cash, exactly. So it normally would be just cash, keep cash. We say that back in the year 1999 or 2000, the average bank account in the country paid around 5% interest. So you kept cash in the bank. Every $100,000 in the bank paid around $5,000 a year in interest. Right? Not a bad place to keep your cash. Right? Well, now if you put money in the bank, the average is about 0.2. 0.2. So for every $100,000 that's in the bank now, you only get $200 a year of interest on that same amount. Does it make some sense?
Yeah, it's a huge difference.
Right?
It's crazy.
So again, you want to find an alternative to that. So typically, it might be a bond. So usually you have stocks, bonds, and cash, right? So a bond may pay more interest than 0.2, and usually they do. But then you have to have a period of time that it's locked up for. So bonds might be a 1-month bond, a 1-year bond, a 5-year bond, right? And those could be treasury bonds. CDs are certificates of deposit. They're you should call them bonds issued by a bank, but that's not to be confused with actual bonds that are issued by a bank. So again, CDs would be one sort of a fixed income instrument. Traditional bonds, maybe treasury bonds, corporate bonds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, cash pays nothing, basically, and you want to try to find something keeping an interest. You want to try to find something in interest keeping your money safe. Kind of a teeter-totter,
Safe,
right?
but growing. Essentially is what you're kind of going for.
Well, again, in general, you have to keep it safe or grow it. You don't get to do both. It's either keep it safe and earn nothing, or grow it and deal with the ups and downs, and whether that's this current period we're in. And so we have very specific alternatives to just sitting in cash that we want to talk about today.
So what would you say is the most common, I guess, that people enter into as a cash alternative?
Well, we'll talk about a host of them. Let's go from maybe the safest alternatives out to ones that we consider cash alternatives but might have a little bit of risk. Fair enough?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll kind of go fast. Maybe we'll stop and see if there's any questions or dialogue along the way. But you have cash, and that would be in a checking account at the bank. Okay, a checking account usually pays 0. Maybe in the old days they gave you a toaster. Maybe now if you bring your dog with you, they give him or her a bone, right? But in general, checking accounts don't pay any interest. They give you a free checkbook. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Then the
Wait,
next.
what's a checkbook?
Okay. Well, same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Right. The times are changing.
Yeah.
Besides, then the checking account would be the savings account. Okay, and they used to call them passbook savings accounts, and they would stamp this book back in the day. But it was a checking account, paid no interest. Savings account would pay a little bit of interest at the same bank, but you, again, had to move it from your savings to your checking to do your transaction, right? So the money that's sitting there in the savings account, they paid you a little bit of interest, but it was a little bit less easy to move. Does that make some sense?
Yep.
Okay, the third one that now is really prevalent is called the money market. Have you heard of money market?
I have.
Okay, so that's also available at a bank, and then they're also available outside of a bank at mutual fund companies or other investment companies. And so you can get a money market at a bank. which pays a little bit more interest typically than a savings account. They have other rules. There's only so many withdrawals per month. You have to keep a minimum balance, etc. So now you have checking, savings, money market at a bank. And then outside of the bank, you'll start to move to, again, brokerage firms or other institutions that have these money market mutual funds. And then those are not FDIC insured. Everything at a bank is certainly FDIC insured, right? And there's a reason why you put it there, because if everything gets shut down or locked down, then you're guaranteed your money back by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation.
Makes you feel comfortable.
Makes you feel good, right? So at the bank, you can then move from money market to CDs, certificates of deposit. And that's where you would, again, keep your cash at the local bank. Nowadays, you can actually do online banking. I'm sure you know there are some banks that even don't have brick and mortar locations, and so it's an online bank. And again, as long as you're willing to, wire them or ACH, electronically move your money to them, they will perhaps give you even a higher rate than your neighborhood bank. So these are things that you should consider. We recommend a website, bankrate.com, for anything having to do with current rates and where you can go and see different things. There are certainly other ones out there, but bankrate.com kind of gives you a pretty broad landscape. Make some sense?
Yeah, I mean, so as far as a money market is concerned, specifically, how does that work? How is it decided this is the, percentage interest rate? I guess how is that figured out?
That's a great question, and institutions can kind of come up with whatever they want. So
on an institution by institution basis?
Bank by bank basis,
Gotcha.
for sure. They will use the Federal Reserve as a guideline, right? There's a overnight lending rate. There are these Federal Reserve overnight interbank rates. They have a lot of different rates that they will use as kind of their benchmark, but you'll see a lot of times a teaser rate. So if you go to a local bank here, you might see 1.5%, 1.5% money market special. And so they're actually losing money relative to the money that the bank keeps at the Federal Reserve, because they're trying to entice you to come on in and put the money on deposit. So there can be teaser rates and that sort of thing if you follow along with what I'm saying. And so you have checking accounts, you have savings accounts, you have money markets, and you have CDs at the bank. And then if you want to move away from the bank, whether it's at your brokerage firm, whether that's Great Lakes Wealth, Fidelity, an online broker dealer, you can have money market mutual funds. They also have cash accounts. But then you can get into these other things, called treasuries, U.S. treasuries that you can buy either direct from the Federal Reserve or from your investment professional. You also have mutual funds and ETFs that are considered ultra short, meaning that they're very low duration, meaning a short period of time, and they're a step away from cash and a money market. But now we're getting into interest rates that instead of getting you 0.2, which is maybe the current average at a bank,
That's awful.
0.2, you now can maybe get close to 2. So 0.2 to 2 is a significant amount higher. If you have $1 million, that's the difference between, $2,000 and $20,000. So that's significant, right? So there are exciting things to talk about. There is greater return with some alternatives, but certainly amounts of risk that you also have to pay attention to.
Okay, so we're going to run through, quite a few of these. I guess what would be next? As we, describe this?
Well, you have, again, your savings instruments from a bank. Then you have your U.S. treasuries, and then treasuries can be a T-bill. So you might have a 90-day T-bill, right? So all of these things start with, I guess, the liquidity or lack thereof. Follow me? Mm-hmm. You go to a bank and you write a check off of your account, or go to the bank, hit that ATM to pull some of that money out. What's that stuff that comes out of the machine?
Do they call it cash?
Cash.
Is that what it is?
Right? You're back to the cash.
I haven't touched cash in a long time.
Back to the cash, right? So treasuries or things from the bank, cash alternatives as we're talking about, treasuries could be a 90-day T-bill, so you can't touch it for 90 days. You can get a 3-month CD, also 90 days. Your money's in, and it's tied up. You can't touch it for that period of time. They will let you pull it out, without penalty. Just don't make any interest, so it's not technically locked and you can't get it, right? But the more that you'll freeze your money or lock it up, the more that they will pay you an interest. The current rates right now for a 1-year treasury, okay, you put your money with the U.S. government for a year, could be $10,000, could be $10 million, etc. For 1 year, the Federal Reserve will give you 0.13% on your money. 0.13 for a year. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, on $1 million, that's $1,300 for a year.
Yeah.
On
Gotta have a lot of money to
on
do anything with that.
$100,000, that's $130 of interest. Fair?
So not much.
But
yeah.
it's guaranteed, and you don't have to go to a bank. The Federal Reserve will hold it for you. Fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A year ago, it was 1.88. Right, so it's dropped because again of COVID-19 and all that's going on. The Federal Reserve, the U.S. government has put things in place, has been aggressive at helping keep the economy afloat. And then one way you do it is you lower interest rates. The amount it costs to borrow money. The lower that is, the easier it is to borrow, so you'll spend, but it also the amount it is that you save.
Do you expect that to continue for a while, or is that, as soon as this is over, things will get back to normal, or will it take a few years based on what we've dealt with?
Hi, this is Dewey Steffen, CEO of Great Lakes Wealth. At Great Lakes Wealth, we believe that now, more than ever, it's so important to support our local economy. As a local business ourselves, we are dedicated to helping other small businesses not just survive, but thrive. There are several ways that we can all support our community. Order takeout or curbside delivery. Buy a gift card and use it later. Tip service workers extra. Add local goods to your grocery list. Visit online stores and shop. Today, more than ever, local businesses need our help. They are the heartbeat of our community. Let's all do what we can, as many hands make for light work. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Yeah, Fed Chairman Powell, a few weeks ago at that Jackson Hole virtual conference that we talked about, he said that they anticipate keeping rates here for several years out to 2022. And so rates are close to zero. So that means if you're borrowing, again, it's great. But if your savings, it's not so great.
Not so great, yeah.
Right? So, again, you have, we'll go fast with these numbers, but a year ago, a one-year Treasury yielded 1.88% on your money. Now it's 0.13. A 10-year Treasury, a 10-year Treasury note was 1.79 a year ago, and that actually was called an inverted yield curve. We won't talk about that, but 1.79 a year ago for a 10-year Treasury. Now it's 0.7. So if you want to put your money away, lock it up with the government for 10 years, they will pay you 0.7 per year on your money. Not very much. Again, back in 2000, it would have been 5% per year. Okay, so again, mortgages are lower.
Yeah.
Everything else to borrow is lower, but savings is lower. So the next category within Treasuries is actually the amount of time, 90-day T-bill to a 30-year U.S. government bond. So you can give the money and have it safe, guaranteed for 1 month, actually out to 30 years, right? Besides U.S. Treasuries, the traditional ones, there are these ones that are called TIPS, T-I-P-S, which stands for Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. So they have a special type of government bond that if inflation goes up, then the bond should pay more interest relative to inflation. That was important when we thought rates would go up, because if rates are going to go up or inflation's going to go up, then again, if you have a Treasury that keeps up with inflation, then you might be better off. So there is another category of U.S. Treasuries called TIPS, Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. Okay, there's also ones that are called agencies. There are these other ones that are called Fannie Mae and Ginnie Mae. So there's a lot of sub types of government bonds and government-related instruments. Okay.
Sure. Now, real quick, and we can get back to to combing through this. I know there's a lot of different layers to it, but. And again, this is at the risk of sounding, like an idiot, but little Bogey didn't pay very good attention to, all these birthday presents where he was getting bonds from Grandma and Grandpa. Maybe it was explained to him and he just wasn't listening. I don't know. But how do bonds specifically work, I guess?
Well, a bond is kind of great question.
Without getting too complicated, I don't want to.
Yeah, so a bond
hijack the podcast.
So
here.
A bond is known as a debt instrument or an obligation. So a bond is known as an obligation, and so if you give your money to the government, they owe you that money back plus interest. You're basically loaning it to them. Okay, so a stock. Switching gears, if you invest, you own part of the company. They don't owe you anything. You're just in there and hope it works out. If you get a loan, you are in essence giving an organization the money. They're borrowing it from you. You're giving them a loan. It could
They're
be a
using
bank,
it however they want to do it.
And they
Yeah.
guarantee to pay back the interest, right?
Yeah.
So in the younger bogeyed age, you went to your dad and say, "Hey, pops, I need $5,000. Can I borrow it?" And he's like, "I love you, son, so you can have it for no interest." But actually, he said, "No, son, for sure. But you got to pay the going rate of interest. It ain't the bank of dad, pal."
Yeah.
Do you follow me?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, that's kind of what a bond is. So it's a debt obligation of the issuer of the organization that promises you your money back plus that interest.
Do the interest rates change year over year?
So, yes. So
Every
absolutely.
so often? Okay.
So for
Yeah.
sure, right? So your credit card rate changes and bonds and CDs, all these things change. Some change daily, some change weekly. A lot of it, again, is benchmarked by the Federal Reserve. There's, two rate. One in America that we use mostly is the prime rate. If you're familiar with the prime rate. There's also the LIBOR rate. So if you have a mortgage, you're familiar with the prime rate in America or the LIBOR rate. We won't get into the weeds on that stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, interest rates can change. So again, we said they were almost 2% a year ago for a 1-year Treasury or CD. Now it's a decimal points, almost nothing. So hence, you find a financial advisor or do your research. If we can find solutions that are cash alternatives that are paying 2% as opposed to 0.2%, that's extremely valuable. It's extremely valuable to the investor because maybe they don't want to be in the market. But I don't want to lose my money in the market, but I also don't want to lose any interest that I could get somewhere else. So what options are there? So usually, and we talked about this in the past, with income investing, the more interest someone will pay you, probably the more risk associated. So you have the bank, which guarantees everything with the FDIC insurance. You have other types of cash equivalent money markets and other pretty liquid and safe securities, ultra short treasury funds, bond funds, etc. Corporate bonds, another quick one. Coca-Cola, Nike, those are corporations. Do you think they're going out of business anytime soon?
Probably not.
Probably not, but they could, right? They very much could. General Motors filed bankruptcy in 2008. We've had dozens of bankruptcies this year, again, due to COVID, right?
Sure.
So if Nike or Coca-Cola or another corporation wants money, needs money, so they might issue some bonds. You can invest with them, and they'll have to pay you typically more than the U.S. government would because there's no FDIC insurance, there's no government insurance, et cetera, right? So, again, we can go on and on and on, but the basic category are bank instruments. Then they're just outside the bank instruments, might be from the U.S. government, but then there's money market mutual funds. There's also short duration corporate bonds, ultra short bonds and bond funds. You also have another category called municipal bonds. Have you heard about these?
I've heard of them. I don't know anything about them.
Okay, so we just talked about bonds, right? And all those bonds we talked about, you pay taxes on the interest that you make. You have to pay taxes. This is America.
Of course, yeah.
Right? So
it's very exciting.
bonds,
I love paying
this is
taxes,
big time.
man.
This is big
It's
time,
awesome.
big time finance right here. So if you make interest on your bonds, you have to pay interest income. Okay.
Yep.
And that's whether it's in a bank or through another instrument. Okay. However, there's a category called tax-free municipal bonds, and it can be a tax-free municipal bond fund. But the category of tax-free municipal bonds says that if you give your money or invest again with a municipality, a state or national recognized investment product or institution, if you will, then the interest that you receive, the payments you receive back, are free of tax. They're either state exempt or maybe even federal exempt from taxes. So we have this thing called the tax equivalent yield because do you happen to know what the current highest tax rate in America is, Bogey?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't even know if I could guess a ballpark.
Well, you're going to need to know for the election. So switching gears again, some of the dialogue for the two candidates is based upon tax rates for the rich, tax rates for the poor, et cetera, right? So the current high tax rate in America,
Was it 33%?
you're close, 37.
Okay.
It was up to 39.6, and then 2 years ago the tax structure was amended, so the highest one right now is 37%, and basically that's for individuals making over $500,000 a year, but that's the highest tax
So
rate.
not me. Okay.
37%, right?
Yeah.
But if you make $100,000 in all of your interest, all of your investments, right? You make $100,000 and it's taxed at a 37% rate before your deductions and all the rest of that stuff. How much of that is in taxes?
How much money?
Yeah, how much do you have to pay in taxes? If you have $100,000 in your interest profits,
$37,000.
$37,000 that goes
that's
to
crazy.
the government, right?
Yeah.
So almost 40%.
You're working for them. People
Okay.
love to say that.
Well, again, that's again if you're in the highest
Yeah.
tax bracket.
Sure.
So now, though, if you can take and invest in these municipal bonds, and so maybe they don't pay quite as much interest. So now all of a sudden, though, instead of making $100,000 of interest, which is taxed at 37%,
Yep.
which again means that you have to pay how much in taxes?
$37,000.
Okay, so that means you get to keep how much?
God, quick math.
Quick math.
$63,000.
$63,000. Good job. Ding, 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 right? Okay, so now I say you have another alternative.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you can put your investments into municipal bonds, and you're only going to get $75,000 back that year in interest,
Okay.
as opposed to the $100,000 in the other
But
scenario.
you're going to be taxed less.
But you're going to be taxed at zero. How about you're taxed at zero? So how much do you get to keep out of the $75,000?
$75,000.
So what's a greater number, $75,000 or $63,000?
I would take the 75, please.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
So that's where, again, in that scenario, tax-free municipal bond investing would, at the bottom line, benefit the investor more than the taxable bond investor solution. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it just depends
Okay.
on how much you're bringing in.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's a whole other category, tax-free municipal bonds. So
Sure.
if tax rates go up and you're in a certain tax category, then you'll be more inclined to look for tax-free investments.
Awesome.
But also they may have additional risks. So please consult your professional tax advisor as well as your professional investment advisor to understand the details to what we're talking about.
All right, I know we have a couple of lists that you want to get to. Is there anything else that you want to add to this conversation before we move on to those?
I think we're all set. I think that there are time frames that you want to consider when you're talking about cash and cash alternatives. If you need liquidity, right? If you need the money because you have payroll to make on Friday if you own a business, if you need it because you're closing on your house in 2 days, then you can't tie it up, right? So liquidity is a very important part of cash and cash alternative investing. So the liquidity, so your time frame would be daily, and then maybe it's 1 to 3 months, and then it's usually 3 months to a year, and then it's 1 to 2 years, and then 2 years and beyond. And so the investment opportunities there, or the products, or the solutions, really start with how much time you can have your cash invested or locked up, and then it becomes to the safety and what instrument you're going into. Is it insured? Is it guaranteed? The degrees that are of risk that are there, very important. And so please do your homework, talk to a professional to find out exactly what options might be best for you as the cash alternative investor. But when cash is paying zero in a bank, close to it, try to find something else a little more beneficial to you.
Perfect transition. So I know you have a couple of lists that you want to run through here. So 5 reasons why cash is still king, as people love to say.
Fantastic. Bogey, I almost forgot I had these 2 lists. This is going to make the show. Oh, man, this is fantastic. Okay, 5 reasons why cash. Let's start with this, okay? Pandemic is here, right, Kyle? So we have the COVID-19 pandemic. You familiar?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, there has actually been
Although it's been much better of late than it was.
the pandemic appears to be in some regards, but
Yes.
not necessarily with small businesses and all the rest of it. So that's
those effects are only going to continue.
So we're going to do a quick plug here to please support your local community, shop local business, do all that you can to be a good neighbor to your neighborhood.
100%.
Fair enough?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if you have been out at all shopping, you'll see signs that say, when paying for your order, please use exact change or use, a credit or debit card. Have you seen this at all out there?
I haven't seen the sign, but I do know, there's plenty of businesses that are rounding up you can donate to charities, you can, things of that nature, yes.
Yes. So there has been a national cash and coin shortage due to COVID-19. The Federal Reserve mentioned that initially it was because people thought that the virus might be on your bills and on the coins, and as you're handing it to people, now all of a sudden we're passing around the potential virus. Fair?
And that's why you got to get your Great Lakes Wealth hand sanitizer.
Fantastic.
Right there. Bingo.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right, for sure. And so with we got Sully in the control room. He just fell over laughing. Unbelievable.
The control room. He's sitting right next to us.
That's fantastic, fantastic. So, yes. So actually, there is a national coin shortage.
Okay.
There is $47.8 billion of coins in circulation around the country. Yet when you go to certain places, they say, please give exact change. We won't give you any. We don't have the capability to give you change back. So all that to say that the adage of cash is king, maybe in today's day and age when there's electronic payments, there's Venmo, there's PayPal, et cetera, follow me?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we'll do an episode upcoming about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
I've been waiting to do an episode about
There's a little
cryptocurrency. I have
teaser.
no idea what it actually is. I still think it's fake. Anyway,
There's a
go
little
ahead.
teaser. So we will do a digital asset, also known as cryptocurrency podcast, coming in the next few weeks, okay? So there's a little teaser there. But in today's day and age, I was able to find 5 reasons why cash is still king and 5 reasons why cash is no longer king, okay?
Okay.
We're going to go through them both and let everyone just decide on their own where they may fall, okay? So the 5 reasons that cash is still king would be, 1, it's accepted almost anywhere. Okay, including other countries. It's known as a currency around the world. Fair?
Yep.
Number 2, it's useful in emergencies. If you need something for $1 or for $5 or for a $20 bill, it's useful for emergencies. Everyone always says keep $100 under that mattress. I always say put it in the freezer. Roll up a couple hundreds, put it in the freezer. Now I got to change my spot that I told the whole listening audience. But so it's useful in emergencies, okay? Number 3, you might get a discount. They always say get a discount, pay for cash.
Gas stations.
Gas stations.
Less
Perfect
per
example.
gallon if you pay cash
10
versus
cents
credit.
on
Yeah.
average, right?
Yep.
For sure. So
And that's significant.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
It is. I mean,
I
that's
agree
a
with you
huge
100%.
difference.
I agree with you 100%. The next one is you'll spend less. An MIT research study found that people who use cash instead of a credit card use less.
See, why do you think that is?
Well, because
Because I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, because if you got a credit card with a $25,000 limit, you can
You just
spend up to
kind
25
of, you're just
Gs.
doing it and you don't even see it. And then at the end of the month, you see what you did, look at the damage, and you pay it.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess with cash, you're like, whoa, say you had $400 to spend that week and you dinner, maybe you went and got gas, drinks, whatever it might be. And all of a sudden you're looking at it going, man, I only have $130 left and I still got 3 days left in the week. You might be hesitant to continue spending, I guess.
Yeah. So
yeah.
if you don't have credit cards or don't have plastic, you can only spend what's in your pocket.
Yeah,
Fair
sure.
enough.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a very good way to force save. Okay. Another one, you won't run up debt. Same lines. You can't run up any debt and you don't have any, credit card balances if you're not using a credit card. Very simple. And then the last one that we'll go with today, your purchases will stay private. A lot of people like to pay in cash because they don't want a record of what they bought and how they bought it. You know what I mean? I'm not sure about you, but if I'm going to go buy, brand new golf clubs, and they come to the house and your significant other is like, I didn't see this on the credit card bill. And you're like, I know. I went to Carl's Golf Land and paid cash.
That's why you run those through the country club, okay? Run that on that account. You keep the clubs at the club, okay, inside your locker, and they never have to see it. Not that I do that.
Again, there's just...
But I heard people might.
Yes, your purchases stay
Other golfers.
private.
Yeah.
Purchases stay private. So, now there are 5 reasons why cash is no longer king, okay? 1, it's not easily recovered. If you lose your money, there's no record or no way to cancel that transaction or find where the last transaction happened because it's gone. It's cash,
True.
right? He who holds the cash holds the cash, right? Number 2, there's less chance of a crime. If you don't have cash, what are they going to rob you for? Your credit card, I guess. Well, I guess we shouldn't say that, but yes.
Sure, I guess, but you call and report it stolen, and
That's
bam,
right.
it's
Exactly
over.
right. So crime goes down if you don't use cash or have cash. So that's another one. And cash is not convenient for big purchases, right? You can't really go out and pay. I guess you could pay cash for a car or something like that, but it's a little inconvenient. Fair enough?
Yeah, it'd be a little heavy.
Okay.
Heavier than a credit card, that's for sure.
Yep, that's it. And then they say that you can't use it online. So unless you use a cash card, you can't make purchases online with cash.
Yeah.
Right? Venmo, PayPal, etc. Right? And the final one is, and I know this is important today, cash is dirty. Researchers from New York University recently conducted the first comprehensive genome study of the DNA found on money, and you would not believe what they found. Can I share that with you, Kyle?
Go ahead. I don't usually carry cash, so that's okay.
Their findings reveal that there were 3,000 types of bacteria on a set of $1 bills. Among the microorganisms found on the bills, species that caused acne, gastric ulcers, and food poisoning.
I just put hand sanitizer on, just
Do
listening
it.
to you say that. Okay.
Just do it. Yes. So those are 5 reasons why maybe you don't need cash as much as you used to.
Really quick here as we wrap things up. Do you think we'll ever get to a point where cash is gone?
I think it'll be way past our lives
Really?
if that happens, for sure. I mean, they used to pass around, necklaces and furs, and then it was gold. So there probably will be, everything's digital for sure, but it would be generations and generations from now, in my humble opinion. Yes. So I think that does it for today's episode. What do you think?
Heck yeah. No, I thought that was great, informative. I learned a lot. Little Bogey in his bond collecting over the years learned a lot as well. I'm looking forward to cashing those in someday. I am also looking forward to finally getting to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and learning a little bit more about that. We'll do that in the coming episodes on the What Do We Do podcast.
Fantastic. And you know what? The perfect way to wrap up today would be with a quote from Johnny Cash. Okay? Johnny Cash, you know who he is, the man in black?
Heck yeah.
The man in black?
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Cash was quoted as saying, "All your life, you will be faced with a choice. You can choose love or hate. I choose love." Okay? The great Johnny Cash to wrap it up. See you next time. We're just getting started.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. It's only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risks and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.